In continuation with my last lecture, which I had started, the literary criticism, and the entire 1 hour lecture was about the criticism, types of criticism, and so many things which I have taught you yesterday. So now, in continuation, today you will get the lecture in detail about our ancient guru Aristotle. बहुत ध्यान से सुनिएगा स्टूडेंट्स, क्योंकि हमेशा कोई भी एग्जाम हो, कोई भी इंटरव्यू हो, without knowing, yeah, without having a command over these ancient gurus like Aristotle, Plato, Homer, Virgil, Longinus, you will always feel a vacuum in your mind and heart. And as a student, as a scholar of English literature, you have to prove a very sorry figure when somebody asks you these questions and you are unable to answer. So this is the time when you are getting an opportunity to get that level of guidance, which is actually a blessing for you students. So not to waste time much, and I'll start with Aristotle. You must have read in your graduation and post-graduation, one of his most important works for which Aristotle is known is the Poetics. And what is this Poetics? It is actually a defense of poetry against the attacks scattered in the writings of Plato. And who was Plato? Plato, who taught philosophy to Aristotle when he was a young man. Plato condemned poetry as remote from reality. And Aristotle's reply to this charge of Plato involves his concept of imitation. Because Aristotle borrowed the term imitation from Plato, but he used it in a new sense, and thereby giving a new and a fresh meaning to it. It is all the credit, it is all the versatility of Aristotle that he makes imitation an aesthetic faculty. Aristotle defines poetry as a kind of imitation. In the strict meaning of that word, what he means is that a poet is a maker. The author of a poem and the author of a scientific treatise both use the same means of expression. And what is that means of expression? That is words, shabd. The poet represents the life as seen through the medium of his own personality, and so creates something new. And the same thing the novelist or the dramatist does in prose. To us, word imitation suggests an exact reproduction of visible objects, as in a photograph or in the realistic scenery with which the modern picture stage is often cumbered. Aristotle's use of the word carries no such suggestion. Realism in that sense was not then born. And a second distinction between various kinds of imitation turns on the objects represented. They may be idealized or realistically represented. And we can also draw a distinction on the mode of imitation. Some poets speak throughout in their own character, and some great poets like Homer, Milton, they vary the narrative by the introduction of the characters who speak in dialogue. Plato discussed the problem of imitation in art and poetry in accordance with his theories of ideas. And if you remember, students, in book 10 of the Republic, Plato argues, and that argument is well known by the students all over the world. अब वो क्या था? There are many tables in the world, but there is only one idea, and that idea is known as Platonic idea of a table. And when a carpenter makes a table, he produces a mere semblance or picture of this idea, which is the one real table lying beyond all the tables which have been or can be made. So that idea for our present very general purpose is outside the world together. And when an artist sits down in front of the carpenter's table to paint a picture of it, the picture that results is a copy of something which is itself a kind of a shadow of that real object. So the artifact is removed at two stages from reality. Reality से दो बार removed है. And Aristotle refuted this argument of Plato that imitation takes the artist away from reality. And he asserted that it brings him near to reality. And Aristotle replied this argument of Plato by saying that tables are matter and form compounds. Matter is the brute stuff of their makeup, and form their intelligible essence. All know a table when we see one, but we do not know what we are doing when we see and know a table. So this is a very good example of a table which is given by him. And imitation, in the sense in which Aristotle applies it to poetry, is equivalent to producing or creating according to a true ideal, and the poet seeks to give it more complete expression, to bring to light the ideal which is only half revealed in the world of reality. Aristotle says that an artist imitates because he gets pleasure in imitation, and this faculty is an inborn instinct in man. It is this pleasure of imitation that enables the child to learn his earliest lessons in speech and conduct from those around him. एक बच्चे को देखिए, बच्चा क्या करता है, उसको कितना मजा आता है इमिटेट करने में, और वही इमिटेशन से ही हम उस बच्चे को स्पीच करा पाते हैं. And he loves imitating. Got my point, students? And so we can say that Aristotle's way of interpreting poetic imitation is possibly the most valuable of all his contributions to the aesthetic theory. Now, I'll come to some more important things as far as we have to learn a lot about Aristotle in this session, and that is, we can say, the most important aspect, Aristotle's theory of tragedy. Tragedy, theory of tragedy क्या है? अगर हम आपसे कहें कि speak few lines, write few lines on Aristotle's theory of tragedy, आपके मन में इस समय बहुत सारी चीजें आ चुकी होनी चाहिए. I am sure you must be prepared yourself, because this is a question which has been in the course in graduation and even in post-graduation. If we compare Aristotle's interest in tragedy, we will find that he was not that interested in comedy, epic, or lyrical poetry than compared to the interest in tragedy. Why? Because Aristotle took tragedy to be the most representative of the arts. And for gaining more knowledge about this theory of tragedy, we have to reproduce certain definition of tragedies. Aristotle's definition of tragedy. Tragedy, according to him, is an imitation of an action. और वो एक्शन जो कि सीरियस है, कॉमिक नहीं होना चाहिए. Tragedy is an imitation of an action that is serious, that is complete in itself, and it has a certain magnitude. The language should be embellished with a lot of artistic content, and pity and fear effecting the catharsis or the proper purgation of the emotions. एरिस्टोटल ने खुद से एक्सप्लेन किया है कि जो फ्रेज है लैंग्वेज एम्बेलिश्ड, व्हाट इज दिस? दिस रिफर्स टू रिदम, this refers to song and music, and for each part separately means that some parts of a tragedy have only the rhythm of poetry while other parts have song and music as well. Some people think that Aristotle's criteria in the Poetics are purely aesthetic and that he is quite free of what they call the moral fallacy in the appreciation of poetry. And this would be actually very strange, for Aristotle is a Greek and he is certainly not free from the Platonic fallacy in the politics. So the other difficulty is the meaning of catharsis. And here lies the problem, the difficulty between the purging of such emotions and the purification of such emotions. That is, the first, the purging of such emotions, is a medical metaphor, and the second, an Orphic one, and both are possible meanings. We have no right to ignore the passage at the end of the Poetics, where the sense of purgation is perfectly clear, and which specifically refers to the Poetics for a clearer explanation, not for a completely different meaning. Then apart from this, I would like to take some details about the views on the parts of tragedy. There have been n number of questions in the various examinations which are not complete without Aristotle's questions. So that is why I told you to listen properly and very in full concentration. Aristotle ने 6 significant parts of tragedy को recognize किया है students. 6, और वो 6 जो important significant parts हैं tragedy के, वो हम आपको बताएंगे in order of its importance. और ये ऑर्डर और इसका मीनिंग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. पहला ऑर्डर में आता है प्लॉट. प्लॉट जिसको कहते हैं म्यूथोस. नंबर 2, कैरेक्टर. इथियोस. The spelling is wrong. Pronunciation different है. The third, thought, T-H-O-U-G-H-T, T-H-O-U-G-H-T, thought. ये सभी प्रकार के क्वेश्चंस आ चुके हैं. डाइनुया, D-I-A-N-O-I-A. फोर्थ, डिक्शन. डिक्शन को क्या कहते हैं? लेक्सिस. डिक्शन को कहते हैं लेक्सिस. फिफ्थ, मेलोडी, मेलोस. एंड द सिक्स्थ, लास्ट इज स्पेक्टिकल, जिसको कहते हैं ऑपिस. ऑपिस. So he has recognized 6 significant parts of the tragedy, and in order of importance, the number 1 is plot, number 2 is character, number 3 is thought, then diction, then melody, and then spectacle. These parts are produced by the basic principles of imitation, manner, means, and object. अब हम बात करते हैं डिटेल में अलग अलग से, what is a plot? So students, एरिस्टोटल के लिए प्लॉट क्या था? प्लॉट is basically the most important because he considers plot to be the structure of the action, and because tragedy is the imitation of any action which I have just told you, the action is the imitation, and so it is the soul of a tragedy. और सोल कितना इंपॉर्टेंट होता है? सो एरिस्टोटल का यह मानना है that it is possible to have a tragedy without characterization, but without plot there can be no tragedy. ट्रेजेडी हम लिख सकते हैं without characterization, but without plot there can be no tragedy. So always remember this thing. You have to face these questions at many junctures of your English career. And according to Aristotle, story या plot, it must be one, and that is why it is known as the unity of plot. There should be a unity of plot, and this is something which, this unity which Aristotle requires, but this he has always insisted on emphatically, and it must be a real unity which is not achieved. The unity must be such that if any one incident is deleted or it is displaced, the whole play is dislocated. इसका मतलब होता है कि the unity must be organic, with a definite place, with a definite function of every part, and every part has to remain in its place, and the connection between them must be inevitable, and this connection should not be too obvious beforehand, or there should be an element of surprise, but the design must be clearly after the event, because an appearance of inevitability may be sufficient to achieve unity, as in the story of some play you can see it, that how there are so many tragedies where Aristotle's concept is 100% located, and he proves that whatever he has written, it is 100% correct. Now we will talk about reversal. So आपने ये देखा कि प्लॉट की कितनी इंपॉर्टेंस है. रिवर्सल को क्या कहते हैं? पेरिपीशिया. ये तो शायद आपने एमए में भी एग्जाम में दिया होगा, ये एग्जाम में आता है, क्वेश्चन आता है। व्हाट इज रिवर्सल, व्हाट इज द अदर नेम, पेरिपीशिया। इसमें कहा है एरिस्टोटल ने कि जो इवेंट्स होते हैं दे मस्ट बी सच so that pity and fear can arouse, and the change of fortune, भाग्य का जो चेंज होता है, that is preferably from the good fortune to the bad fortune. It must be a single story also, but the structure of the plot may be simple or it may be even complex. अगर कॉम्प्लेक्स होगा तो बेहतर होगा according to Aristotle. And it means that the change of fortune is accompanied by reversal and recognition. रिवर्सल एंड रिकॉग्निशन। रिकॉग्निशन को क्या कहते हैं स्टूडेंट्स? एनाग्रोसिस। ए एन ए जी एनाग्रोसिस। GOGNORISIS SIS recognition. So Aristotle gives example of peripecia in Oedipus Tyrannus. Oedipus had fled Corinth because of an oracle that he would slay his father and marry his mother. Even when he hears of the death of the king of Corinth, he refuses to return for fear that the second part of the oracle might still come true. And the messenger tries to put his fears at rest by telling him that he was not the child of Polybus and Meropa, but a foundling. It is this information which leads to the discovery that the oracle had already been fulfilled. And peripecia then means that as the plot seemed to be moving in one direction, there is a sudden turn of events and it moves in other direction. I am sure now the students, you must be comfortable with the detailings of it. Now I come to this part, recognition, which is also known as anagrosis. What is recognition? पहचान लेना, पहचान पाना, डिस्कवरी हो जाना, स्पेशली कोई बॉन्ड है, कोई किनशिप है विथ समवन थॉट टू बी एन एनिमी, हम उसको दुश्मन मान रहे थे, वो हमारी माँ बहन भाई कोई निकल आया। whom one is about to injure, हम किसी को मारने जा रहे हैं, हम किसी को नुकसान पहुंचाने जा रहे हैं, और एकदम से रिकॉग्निशन हो गया। हमारी कितनी हिंदी फिल्में इस पे बेस्ड हैं। ओके, सो in the wider sense, one might say anagrosis by discovery, anagrosis by disclosure, and this is much more suited to the modern drama. But it is the recognition between the persons which Aristotle discusses and it has in his mind. And the best type of plot is complex in the sense that it is complicated by recognition, it is complicated by peripecia, and both should arise directly out of the action without seeming to be contrived even by the dramatist. Got students? Understood well? समझ में आया कि नहीं आप लोगों को? आप लोग कुछ लिख नहीं रहे हैं मैसेज बॉक्स पे? Spectacle. What is a spectacle? A spectacle is produced by the poet. It is not produced by the costume designer and or actors. A spectacle refers first and foremost to the way that a dramatic text is written. The text of a play by Shakespeare, for instance, is worked out in a way which is very different from the text of a novel. And the dramatist cannot describe because he is entirely based on dialogues and he must adjust the dialogues to the actions that he is imagining the characters performing. And he must also provide a lot of minor characters and messengers to relate such matters beyond the figures who are major figures. And he must avoid actions that are impossible or even ridiculous. He must also limit the number of characters and avoid placing the same character in two locations at the same time. So he also deprecates the meaning, the rousing of pity and fear by the spectacular means rather than by the plot structure. And yes, a play which relies entirely on the spectacle, dekhna, to stir the audience has nothing in common with the tragedy. For the effect is not so much fear as amazed horror. So this is the least, which was the 6th point by Aristotle, spectacle. Then what is thought? Thought क्या होता है according to Aristotle? According to Aristotle, उसने खुद लिखा है, खुद कहा है, by thought he meant that something which is found in whatever things men say when they prove a point, or it may be express a general truth. And he makes a difference between two types of speeches. Firstly, those which are expressive of his moral purpose, showing what things he chooses, what thing he is avoiding. And secondly, those which are very argumentative and aim at proving or enunciating some truth. And it is the second variety which comes under the category of thought. Aristotle has borrowed this concept of thought from rhetoric. And this is confirmed later in chapter 6, when Aristotle states that thought is related to the art of politics and rhetoric. For the expression of thought, which is in effect the art of rhetoric, Aristotle simply refers to his book जिसका नाम है Rhetoric. And in book 2 of the Rhetoric, chapter 19 and 24, he has discussed the ways that thought manifests itself in speeches. And the three most important are by maxims, by enthymemes, and by general lines of argument that can be applied to any subject. So ये था thought. अब आता है melody. What is melody? Aristotle melody को डिस्कस अलग से नहीं करता. वो कहता है it is like a spectacle, an adornment. Adornment मतलब होता है सजाना, rather than an essential. जरूरत नहीं है. Melody is something minor and must be brought out by the performer's art. हमारी कला से वो निकल के आए. And he has said that melody is the part of the poetic art because Greek traditions composed the choral sections of the dramas, and these sections were to be chanted. And it is the implicit in the meters. वो क्या है? वो meters के अंदर implicit है, using those choral sections. So it only achieves its full effect in performance, while the performance is going on the choral effect. Clear? So now it is language. Aristotle has dealt with language or diction in 3 chapters. Chapter 21, chapter 20, chapter 21, and chapter 22, which are mostly about grammar, mostly about linguistics, and are of little broader interest, except for 2 things: the treatment of metaphor and a few but illuminating remarks on the diction. That the language has to be effective, should be lucid without being common, and now the most lucid language consists of current words, but it is common. So a lot of things Aristotle has written, and you can become a great scholar of Aristotle if you have the capacity to read voraciously, and unless and until you are not satisfied with the content, with the knowledge level which you attain author by author, unless and until, तब तक उसको हमें छोड़ना नहीं चाहिए. ये बहुत अच्छा तरीका होता है if you actually want to excel some author, some knowledge, some course, some unit, or any other thing in your life. इसमें हम आपको एक चीज और बताना चाहेंगे कि Aristotle, when he is describing the tragic character, and that hamartia should be a part of that character, hamartia, and a mere mistake, एक छोटी सी गलती, which actually is corresponding to the inner fault, and on the other hand is purely external and cannot make the change of fortune probable or inevitable. We should also not forget the comic flaw, which must in some way or the other be parallel. Why? Because comic characters are by definition morally inferior, and the paleness, the ugliness, which is not vicious, brings them up. One imagines towards the common human level of men as they are, more like ourselves, and tragic heroes are great and noble, but the weakness which is their flaw brings them more down towards the common level, preventing them being so noble and saintly that we do not identify ourselves with them either. What use Aristotle made of the personality flaw in comedy, we cannot tell any more than what use he made of the comic catharsis, if indeed there was such a thing. Clear? So, इसमें आपको और हम क्या बता दें, एक चीज और याद आ रही है मुझे, कैरेक्टराइजेशन. Characterization is discussed under plot, to which it is really subsidiary because it arises out of the action, and Aristotle goes into the considerable detail about the best tragic plots and the situations. And he has advised the dramatization of the old legends, but he recognizes that this is not essential because these legends are in any case familiar only to a few people. We have seen that the story must be one, a double plot, as in the case of Odyssey, where the good are rewarded and the bad punished, is therefore not the best of the kind. And this kind of denouement, which is put into please the groundlings, is closer to comedy, where the greatest enemies are reconciled and nobody kills anybody. Only that kind of plot will arouse pity and fear, where the suffering is inflicted by people whose relationship should imply affection. Okay, students? So, Aristotle has a strong dislike of the supernatural, since every event must follow the other as probable or inevitable. And he wants to restrict the supernatural to events outside the play, that is, in the past or the future. Gods may be allowed to tell of the distant part or to foretell the future, but the supernatural interventions within the play, like the chariot sent by the Helios or the Medea's escape, must be avoided. Within the play itself, there must be nothing irrational or inexplicable. The last thing which I would like to discuss here is that Aristotle is critical of contemporary tragedies, traditions. And when at the end of his discussion of the plot, he suddenly speaks of 4 types of tragedy, there are types by which actual and probably the contemporary tragedies may be classified because of their exaggerations, hyperbolings of a particular aspect. For he clearly disapproves of every type but one. The first is the complex tragedy, a tragedy with a complex plot, with peripety and recognition, and of this he approves. It is in fact the type he has been building up and recommending all along. And the second is the tragedy of mere suffering, as he has told us that pathos or suffering is not enough. And the third is the tragedy of character, but to him the character should remain subordinated to the plot. And the fourth is the spectacular tragedy, which he has earlier dismissed with contempt as not tragedy at all. He admits that each kind has had good poets, but he reaffirms that the basic requirement of tragedy is the plot, plot, plot. And one may surely conclude that his own classification by different types of plot, simple, complex, etc., is much to be preferred. So this is the end of the lecture, and I hope you must have understood it well, and I wish that now you just write few messages that yes sir, I understood 10%, 20%, 30% or 100%, so that I may feel that whatever I had prepared for you, it was good enough for your knowledge as well as your examination. So now students, just wait for few this thing. We'll meet you on the test series. Test series को अच्छे से करिएगा, और नेक्स्ट हम लोग अब मिलते हैं मंडे को. कभी ऐसा लगे कि आपने क्लास खोला और उसमें लिखा रहे कि टुडे नो क्लास, समथिंग लाइक दिस, तो बस समझ जाया करिए कि सर कहीं व्यस्त हो गए हैं, किसी वजह से आज क्लास नहीं हो पाई है. तो उसमें कोई मैसेज और या फोन करने की जरूरत नहीं है कि अगर लिखा है देयर इज नो क्लास, दिस मीन्स कि नो क्लास. तो ये मैं आगे के लिए भी आपको बता रहा हूं. इसलिए जैसे क्या होता है, लिखा है नो क्लास, उसके बाद भी आप लोग पूछ लेते हैं, तो उसकी कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, लेकिन और कभी कभी कुछ ऐसा हो जाता है. तो वेल स्टूडेंट्स, देन मीट यू ऑन मंडे एंड यूटिलाइज दिस सैटरडे संडे with good energy and complete this course. और इस लेक्चर को सुनने के बाद आप अपनी पढ़ाई खुद में बहुत अच्छी कर सकते हैं. ओके स्टूडेंट्स, थैंक यू.